Once you've got your riding position established, you can learn how to communicate with your horse. These are your riding aids. Knowing how to use your aids is knowing how to use your body position, not your strength, to manage and control your horse's motion.
There are three main or primary aids: seat, also called weight aids, legs, and hands. If you need any help making your point clear to your horse, there are additional aids available. These are the whip or crop, spurs, and voice. The order of our aids is important. It should always be seat first, then legs, then hands. After that, if necessary, you can use any combination of the whip, spurs, or voice. These aids and how we use them are for all of our riding, dressage, jumping, or just taking a trail ride, as these aids are based on the nature of the horse. Learning how to ride correctly is learning how to positively influence our horse with our aids. The aid that means the most to your horse is your seat. Your horse's body is sensitive, and any shift in weight, forward, back, side to side, has a huge effect on where and how your horse is going. Seat aids can be divided into three categories. The first is to weight both seat bones. Your horse gets a little whoa message when you do this. The aid should be short, intense, and nearly or completely invisible. Now this makes capturing the moment on video very subtle, but watch as this rider gives her horse the whoa message by using more weight on both seat bones, and she brings him to a halt. You use this aid by keeping your upper body tall, and you engage your core and drop through your seat. A common problem is when you lean back and sit tensely. Notice how the knees come up and the lower leg shifts forward. The second way to use the seat is to ease the weight on the seat bones. This is described as being light and forward and gives your horse a little natural go. Again, catching the movement is subtle, but look as this rider shifts her seat bones forward, coming out of a half halt. Sometimes riders find that when they ease up on the seat, the hip and pelvis lock forward. Being stuck like this hollows your back and forces you to pinch with your thighs. Now, instead of giving your horse a natural go, he's being told, don't go. The last category is the easing of weight from one side or the other. This subtle shifting of weight to either seat bone leads to a slight lowering of the hip and knee, and more weight moves into the stirrup on that side. You can tell a horse direction, tempo, and change of gait with the use of this seat. These aids are also used when asking for movements that require the horse to be bent and flexed. A good rule to remember when working on your seat aids: they need to support the movement of the horse, not get in the way. As you work out all the ways you can communicate using your seat, you're also mixing in leg aids, and the leg must be in partnership with the seat. There are basically three categories for how to use the legs. The forward driving leg is simply asking your horse to move forward. You give the horse a quick impulse with the lower leg, and he should move forward in response. The most sensitive part of your horse's side is just back from the girth, and this is ideally where you'd want to put your leg. It works best when you turn your toe out slightly. This means the thigh can't clamp down. Here are a few common mistakes. When the leg is too far forward, you're mostly just kicking at air. If your leg is too far back, the heels tend to come up, the knee pinches on the saddle, and you've done nothing to send your horse forward. The next leg aid is when you want your horse to move both forward and sideways. When using the forward-sideways leg aid, your leg is slightly behind where the leg is used for a forward driving leg. The sideways push is coming from your leg that's opposite of the direction of the movement. The third way to use your leg is to support your horse's body and help guide him in a balanced way. This aid has three names, but all are essentially the same: regulating, guarding, and supporting. The leg is not so much an active asking leg, but a leg that supports the outside of your horse's body. For example, if your horse is on a circle, the outside leg is there to form a wall to let your horse know that he's gone far enough. Within these 3 leg aid categories, there are necessary adjustments based mostly on the gait of your horse. A walk needs alternating leg pressure based on the fact the walk is a 4-beat gait. The 2-beat trot is asked for and maintained with 2 legs used at the same time, while the 3-beat canter needs a rider to use 1 leg at the girth and the other leg slightly back from the girth. Good leg aids need a good sense of timing. There's a time to be active and a time to be passive. The leg aids have to be in sync with your seat and hand aids, as well as with the horse's motion. The last aid of our 3 main aids is our hand, and ironically, unless we've had a good riding education from the beginning, it turns out to be the first aid we use. But that's a mistake. The hand should be the last. Developing good hand aids and contact with the horse is the most important step in a rider's education. There are 5 ways that we should use the reins: yielding, asking, non-yielding, regulating, and sideways acting. Within these 5 ways, you have the option of using 2 reins together as the same aid, using only 1 hand as the aid, or using 1 hand as one aid and the other hand as a different aid. Then mix in your seat and leg aids. You can see why coordination is so important. The yielding and asking rein are the giving and taking rein, and you need to always consider these 2 as a pair. You shouldn't have one without the other, and there's no right or wrong about which comes first. To more closely understand, look how this rider is holding the right rein with a more firmly closed hand. This is the asking. And then there's the release of the rein as she softens the contact. This is the yielding. A good rule when learning how to give and take is never take without giving. The second hand aid is the non-yielding rein. This aid is used when you're having trouble with a horse that's resisting the contact. A rider needs to be using seat, legs, and then the non-yielding rein to remind a horse to go forward into the contact. The non-yielding rein is a short hold, and by short, we're talking somewhere between seconds and nanoseconds. As soon as the horse softens and moves forward without resistance in the hand, the rider softens too, relaxing the hand aids. The third type of hand aid is when one rein becomes a regulating or guarding rein. Generally, it's the outside rein, and it has many descriptive names like supporting rein and balancing rein. You'd use this when your horse is being asked to be bent or flexed. The guarding rein works as a team with the inside yielding rein. The last of the rein aids is the sideways acting rein, sometimes called an opening rein. This rein is generally reserved for helping a horse figure out how to get somewhere, most often a young horse or a horse that's learning something new. The opening rein, meaning you actually open the rein away from your horse's neck, gives him a chance to see where you intended to go. It's a truism that the overuse of the rein causes a multitude of problems in our riding. The biggest mistakes to avoid when using your hand aids: not giving enough or just plain taking too much. This exercise, where you learn how to follow the line of contact through the reins, can help free your hands and elbows so that your rein aids are fluid and forward with your horse's motion. When trying to make your horse responsive, sometimes your seat, leg, and hands need a little help. This is where auxiliary or secondary aids come in. These backup aids are the whip or crop, spurs, and the voice. For dressage work, the most common secondary aid is the whip. Your horse shouldn't fear the whip, but he should have a healthy respect for it. For jumping, you would be more likely to carry a crop or a bat. The crop can be used on the horse's shoulder or behind the saddle pad. After you have your independent seat and control of your legs, adding spurs is helpful. The spur's purpose is to help generate impulsion or just plain respect for your leg aids. The spur can be used separately from the whip or as a complement to it. Like the whip, the use of the spur should be thoughtful and brief. And like the whip, using them too much is nagging the horse. Sooner or later, he'll just stop listening. The last of the auxiliary aids is the voice. If a horse is being sluggish or inattentive, a quick click, like that, or brief reprimand can be helpful. It's not so much what you say, but the tone of your voice that's important. If your horse is scared or worried, a calming, low-pitched voice can add a measure of reassurance.
Easy, 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 easy. Good girl. Good girl.
One caution, don't overuse your voice. Horses, like people, stop listening. And if you want to compete your horse, be aware. The voice is not permitted in dressage competition, making the voice a training aid, but not an aid for the show arena. Once you have your position and basic aids in place, it's time to put the full picture together. All of your aids add up to using diagonal aids. A good way to think of diagonal aids is they're a marriage between your inside and outside aids. When first learning to ride, you use lateral aids, meaning aids on the left side of the horse make your horse go left, and aids on the right make you go right. But as you become more skilled and coordinated, and assuming your horse is trained to the necessary level, you're able to use diagonal aids. The essence of diagonal aids is when you ride your horse balanced from the inside leg into the outside rein. Let's break down how this works in action. To ride a circle using diagonal aids, you start with your weight aids, in this case by placing a bit more weight on your inside seat bone. Next, your inside leg acts as a forward driving aid, pushing lightly at the girth area to encourage your horse to step more forward with his inside hind leg, and you're asking your horse to be bent around that leg. Your outside leg is establishing the wall that limits your horse so he won't make the circle bigger or swing his haunches out. Pretty much at the same time, the inside rein softly and subtly asks for a slight flexion, so you can just see the inside eyelashes. The outside rein is allowing the horse to be flexed and bent to the inside, but it's firm enough to be supporting and balancing the horse. With these aids in place, you are riding your horse on a circle from inside leg into outside rein, diagonal aids. Although I've just described these aids in order of use, when you're actually on the horse, the timing is measured in split seconds, and the aids are used as you feel the need to either adjust or maintain how your horse is moving. There's no cruise control with a horse, so your aids can't be thought of as something that you set up and then just leave alone. Like a dialogue, you need to be constantly communicating with your horse through your aids.